Is your DNA being used against you? That's something we actually have to consider here in the year 2020. So stick around for the rest of the video and we're going to talk about how your DNA might be used against you here in the future. Hey everybody, it's Magic Prepper, and today we're talking about how your DNA might be used against you in the future thanks to the cataloging of all the DNA data around the world by China. Yes, China has been cataloging DNA data and health profiles for years and years. And now they finally got to a point where they have a catalog of over 80 million health profiles, and that's given them access to the DNA code of that many people. So, is it possible that this DNA data could be used against you in the future? Well, some people are saying yes. And I know we've all been preparing for whatever might happen during 2021 and beyond based on what's happened so far this year. And we've had a lot to learn when it comes to what's happening around the world in the sense of things changing very rapidly. So if you're preparing for things to change rapidly and you're worried about how your DNA or anything else you put out there in the public forum might be used against you here in the future, hit the subscribe button below because we're going to try to get through all this together as a community, and it is getting very interesting out there that threats just seem to keep coming from all directions, and now they're coming from within inside your body, aka your own DNA. Now, really quickly, I just wanted to mention that channel memberships are now live here at the Magic Prepper channel. If that's something you're interested in, please check them out, but it's just something I'm putting out there because people have been requesting such a thing for a while now, and I felt obligated to finally provide some kind of a situation regarding that. So thank you guys so much for any support you can give me in that realm, and I appreciate every single one of you regardless of whether or not you sign up, because nothing will really change here for the people who don't sign up, and for the ones who do, there will be really slight perks based on whatever level you sign up for. I'm new to this, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, moving on to how your DNA could be possibly used against you here in the near future, this is something that is being brought up by one Gordon Chang. Now, Gordon Chang is considered to be a relative expert on the entity of China, or the People's Republic of China, and has a lot of sinister feelings about the collection process of said DNA profiles that China has been cataloging for a long time now. So, just to give you some information about how this whole thing is working out, okay? So, they have 80 million health profiles, okay? And that's not just from their own people, that's from around the world, and there's ways that they can acquire that DNA, and I'm sure you can figure some of those things out, but we'll talk about that in a second. Now, Gordon Chang has come out and said that he's very concerned about this behavior because not only does China want to be number one when it comes to the health world in the sense of health technology and bioadvancement technology, okay? But China has a propensity to use any data and any intel they have in a militaristic way. And he is concerned that they're going to use this data as a way to create bioweapons here in the future. But not just bioweapons. Targeted bioweapons that can specifically target certain groups of different ethnic and racial backgrounds based on their DNA profile. And now that they have such a large collection of different DNA profiles from all types of origin and ethnicity backgrounds, they can start developing things that only affect certain types of people, okay? So now this is something that you have to consider and you have to at least think about. So, is your DNA compromised? Well, we all feel pretty safe living here in America where we're not forced to submit our DNA to the entity of our government in the sense of giving them everything we have so they can track us and they can restrict us based on any behavior or investigate us in the future, whatever it might be. Now, regardless of whether or not you think they have your DNA or not, that's a different story, and I would say in many ways they might, all right? But moving past that, in China, they actually make their people hand over their DNA in order to use it in the future in case they ever have to investigate them. So that's something we have to consider that they're doing there, but then they're also coming over here and taking our DNA health profiles in 3 different ways, okay? They're buying American companies that already have health profiles of Americans. So let's say you're a health insurance group and you have a medical record of one of the surees that you cover. Well, if China buys that group, they can then acquire any records and any data that that group has as part of that buying transfer. So That's one way they do it. They buy up companies that have people's data on file already, and then they acquire that data by doing so. Another way that they do it is by subsidizing DNA analysis for ancestry-style companies. So, you might have done this to yourself, which I have not, and I have thought about many times because I am actually adopted and I don't know my true origin. Guess what it is in the comments below and tell me what you think I look like. But anyway, moving past that, you guys that have sent your DNA to 23andMe or Ancestry.com or any of those other family tree style companies have probably submitted that in one form or another to China. And now China has that DNA on file, and it's possible that your DNA eventually in the future could lead to being compromised thanks to their bioweapons programs, okay? Not to scare you or anything like that, because honestly, I think they have enough of a sampling of everybody at this point to kind of figure out exactly what it is they want to do, regardless of whether or not you sent your DNA in or not. But all I'm saying is that voluntarily, they're actually receiving a lot of this DNA from around the world. Okay, and then the third way that they receive this DNA information is through hacking. And they have hacked health insurance companies and medical providers in the past to try to acquire more and more of this data because it's very valuable to them. Okay, so this is how they've acquired data from foreigners for years now. However, there's a new kid in town and a new way that they're actually acquiring people's health profiles, and it's called, let's call this preventional medicine diplomacy, if you know what I mean. You do. So, that being said, okay, basically they're having conversations with foreign countries and they're saying, look, we're going to have all the vaccines. Almost said it. They almost got me. We're going to have all of the preventional medicine that you can even dream of, and we'll give it to your country. But there's a caveat. You guys have to let us test this preventional medicine on your population, okay? So you let us test your population, and then we get all the data so we can do all the research to make sure that the medicine works really well, and then we will give you said medicine once it's available. So for some countries, they're saying, sounds good, let's go ahead and do it. But what they're not thinking about is the fact that they are then harvesting all that data and all that DNA from all those people that they're testing this preventional medicine on, okay? So now they're doing it in a much more rapid fashion by dangling the carrot over these other countries while they're desperate, okay? So DNA is being transferred over to China. They're taking all the data and they're gonna keep grabbing more and more and more of it as long as they can. Now, here's the thing, okay? They collect all this DNA and all this data from foreigners, foreign countries, but they do not allow foreign countries to use any of their data. You're not allowed to access Chinese DNA profiles if you're not from China. So why hoard all the information unless there was a reason, correct? I mean, we're all not very concerned about the idea of everyone knowing each other's DNA. I mean, we're all human beings, we all understand the process. But if you're China, you decided that you're gonna collect everybody else's DNA, but you're not gonna let anyone else collect yours. And that is where some of the sinisterness of the situation comes into play. Because a big reason for behind why you might want to do something like that is because you want to restrict access to your country's DNA profiles in order to eliminate the competition of creating bioweaponry that can target specific groups and hopefully not target your group when you're the one creating the weapons. This is one of the reasons why Gordon Chang thinks that this is a definite dangerous situation that we have to at least keep an eye on. Because something has happened this year that has probably made a lot of people think of a lot of certain ideas. And what I mean by that is that there's been a pandemic that has proven that a pandemic that's not necessarily targeted and not maybe necessarily a weapon, you tell me. Anyway, now there is proof that a pandemic like the one we've dealt with this year can cripple an economy of a foreign country immediately and can ruin a country immediately and can basically take out a country from within immediately. So, why should we be concerned about this? Well, the precedent has been set that these kinds of tactics seem to work. Look at the state our country's in compared to where it was back in January. And They have the DNA, they have the health profiles, and they have the information to create a more targeted and a more efficient strain of some kind of a bioweapon if they desired to do so. So, this is why we always need to keep preparing for things like pandemics, because this is not the last one that's going to come around. And in Gordon Chang's opinion, it's not even the last one that's going to come from China. And in his opinion, the next one is probably going to have more of a purpose to it. So, keep preparing, and don't look at PPE, and don't look at gas masks, and don't look at hazmat suits, and don't look at all those things that we've prepared with for years before all of this as something other than what it is. You might find yourself eventually needing some of that equipment. So don't let the current condition that we're all dealing with right now in our country make the decision for you that you don't need any of that stuff. That stuff is still important to have and still important to acquire while you're able to, because eventually we could find ourselves in a situation where you might need it, okay? So I just wanted to mention this to all of you. It is something that just recently came out in the news, and it is something that I felt was interesting in the sense of making sure we continue to prepare, because there's always some kind of a secondary motivation for some of these situations we get to see, okay? And we all know that what we're dealing with right now in the country has some kind of a motivation behind it, wouldn't you assume? So, do what you can, and maybe think about OPSEC before you send your blood into random companies that might affiliate with enemies overseas. Just saying. So, if you have anything else to add about China collecting DNA and possibly using it against you in the future, leave it in the comments below. This is what we need to keep doing. We need to communicate, we need to talk about these things, and we need to make things happen as best we can. But at the end of the day, if nothing ever comes of this, that's even better. So, without anything else to say about how our DNA might be compromised thanks to the bioweapons research being done by China, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.